The most vigorous and efficient portion of the army were of course selected for the first passage, while all those who for any cause were weak or disabled remained behind with the stores and munitions of war to be transported afterward when the first passage should have been effected. All this time the enemy on the opposite shore were getting their ranks in array and making everything ready for a furious assault upon the invaders the moment they should approach the land. There was something like silence and order during the period while the men were embarking and pushing out from the land, but as they advanced into the current, the loud commands and shouts and outcries increased more and more, and the rapidity of the current and of the eddies by which the boats and rafts were hurried down the stream or wheeled against each other soon produced a terrific scene of tumult and confusion. As soon as the first boats approached the land, the Gauls assembled to oppose them rushed down upon them with showers of missiles and with those unearthly yells which barbarous warriors always raise in going into battle, as a means both of exciting themselves and of terrifying their enemy. Hannibal's officers urged the boats on and endeavored with as much coolness and deliberation as possible to effect a landing. It is perhaps doubtful how the contest would have ended had it not been for the detachment under Hanno, which now came suddenly into action. While the Gauls were in the height of their excitement in attempting to drive back the Carthaginians from the bank, they were thunderstruck at hearing the shouts and cries of an enemy behind them, and on looking around they saw the troops of Hanno pouring down upon them from the thickets with terrible impetuosity and force. It is very difficult for an army to fight both in front and in the rear at the same time. The Gauls, after a brief struggle, abandoned the attempt any longer to oppose Hannibal's landing. They fled down the river and back into the interior, leaving Hanno in secure possession of the bank, while Hannibal and his forces came up at their leisure out of the water, finding friends instead of enemies to receive them. The remainder of the army, together with the stores and munitions of war, were next to be transported, and this was accomplished with little difficulty now that there was no enemy to disturb their operations. There was one part of the force, however, which occasioned some trouble and delay. It was a body of elephants which formed a part of the army. How to get these unwieldy animals across so broad and rapid a river was a question of no little difficulty. There are various accounts of the manner in which Hannibal accomplished the object, from which it would seem that different methods were employed. One mode was as follows. The keeper of the elephants selected one more spirited and passionate in disposition than the rest, and contrived to tease and torment him so as to make him angry. The elephant advanced towards his keeper with his trunk raised to take vengeance. The keeper fled, the elephant pursued him, the other elephants of the herd following, as is the habit of the animal on such occasions. The keeper ran into the water as if to elude his pursuer, while the elephant and a large part of the herd pressed on after him. The man swam into the channel, and the elephants, before they could check themselves, found that they were beyond their depth. Some swam on after the keeper and crossed the river, where they were easily secured. Others, terrified, abandoned themselves to the current and were floated down, struggling helplessly as they went, until at last they grounded upon shallows or points of land, whence they gained the shore again, some on one side of the stream and some on the other. The plan was thus only partially successful, and Hannibal devised a more effectual method for the remainder of the troop. He built an immensely large raft, floated it up to the shore, fastened it there securely, and covered it with earth turf and bushes, so as to make it resemble a projection of the land. He then caused a second raft to be constructed of the same size, and this he brought up to the outer edge of the other, fastened it there by a temporary connection, and covered and concealed it as he had done the first. The first of these rafts extended 200 feet from the shore, and was 50 feet broad. The other, that is, the outer one, was only a little smaller. The soldiers then contrived to allure and drive the elephants over these rafts to the outer one, the animals imagining that they had not left the land. The two rafts were then disconnected from each other, and the outer one began to move with its bulky passengers over the water, towed by a number of boats which had previously been attached to its outer edge. As soon as the elephants perceived the motion, they were alarmed and began immediately to look anxiously this way and that, and to crowd toward the edges of the raft which was conveying them away. They found themselves hemmed in by water on every side, and were terrified and thrown into confusion. Some were crowded off into the river, and were drifted down till they landed below. The rest soon became calm, and allowed themselves to be quietly ferried across the stream, when they found that all hope of escape and resistance were equally vain. In the meantime, while these events were occurring, the troop of 300 which Sipo had sent up the river to see what tidings he could learn of the Carthaginians were slowly making their way toward the point where Hannibal was crossing. And it happened that Hannibal had sent down a troop of 500 when he first reached the river to see if they could learn any tidings of the Romans. Neither of the armies had any idea how near they were to the other. The two detachments met suddenly and unexpectedly on the way. They were sent to explore and not to fight, but as they were nearly equally matched, each was ambitious of the glory of capturing the others and carrying them prisoners to their camp. They fought a long and bloody battle. A great number were killed, and in about the same proportion on either side. The Romans say they conquered. We do not know what the Carthaginians said, but as both parties retreated from the field and went back to their respective camps, it is safe to infer that neither could boast of a very decisive victory. End of chapter 4. Recording by Sławek Księżycki.